Welcome to everyone joining us on the Bell track. First off, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Tomi, and I'm a developer working on mobile like stack at thoughtbot. And here with me today is Rakesh, also um, a developer at thoughtbot. And today we would be looking into um, belts. But just right before we go into that, I'd like to talk about what ThoughtBot is and what we do at ThoughtBot. ThoughtBot is a design and development agency, and we are open to exploring work on design and development jobs. And right now we are also like a big should I say um open source participant. We have contributed popular libraries, particularly to the Ruby world, and now we're also doing that in the reactive space. And that's where we are to talk about today is belts. Now, just also before we go into belts, a quick ice-breaking question. So, um, as a React Native developer or somebody interested like in React Native, what's your favorite mobile app developed with React Native? Well, I would go first, and then Rakesh, you could possibly like chime in. Um, one, I think my favorite like app built with React Native is um is the popular I have so many options in my head right now. I choose in between ones that I have worked on and the ones that I have seen in the wild. First off, it's the Twitter. It's not much of a mobile app, but it's Twitter's mobile web developed with React Native Web. It's one of like the brilliant use cases of like React Native in the wild. Um, and also, there is some apps that I also used in the past, Luno, uh, and it's more of a um, Luno. Perhaps people are familiar with that. It's an app popular in the Web3 space, basically. Rakesh, you have any other options? Any ideas you have about that?
What was the name of the app that you mentioned?
Luno.
Luno. Okay. I've
It's
probably not heard about it. Like,
yeah,
is it?
it's an open source reactive app. Also, it's more about like it's a Web3 app where you could use have a wallet, basically like have Bitcoin and Ethereum wallets on it.
Oh, I see. It's also partly related to crypto. Then, when you
Yeah,
when you talk about
exactly.
wallets and things like that. Okay, I can
And
go next.
wait,
Uh,
I wanted to say it's also open source.
oh, it's also open source. That makes it tough for me.
Yeah.
I probably do not know a lot of open source React Native apps. I mean, at least not the ones that I can say are my favorite. But if closed source is an option, I I've recently been very impressed with this app called Whitepet. I don't know if you have heard about it. I'm going to paste a link. Uh, Whitepet. So until I saw some of the UI that was developed in this app, I was not sure if React Native is even capable to develop such sleek animations and things like that. I did not think it was possible using React Native, but this app proved me wrong in so many ways. It's also developed by a developer I admire a lot. The name of the person is Ben Awad. He's quite famous. He's a famous YouTuber. If you have heard of him. And yeah, White Pet. It's a mental health app where you can basically pet virtual pets. Anytime you're feeling down or something, you can probably pet some virtual pets in there, and it kind of helps, I guess, with folks having mental health issues and so on. I've not used it, but I've seen some of the UI in the app, and it's also an Expo project, if I'm not wrong. Uh, yeah, I like that app, and there's always big tech firms like Microsoft and Facebook that use React Native extensively and have built a lot of apps.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think the Microsoft Excel app on mobile, both iOS and Android, is a React Native app, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
And that is another app I admire a lot. Again, it's not open source; it's closed source, but I admire that a lot.
absolutely. Um, yeah. You talked about Ben Howard, and like, yeah, those are like popular, like open community, like devs in the recreative world. All right. So yeah, now into belts. Now, what is belt? Um, yeah, belt is an opinionated CLI tool for starting a new recreative app, and it helps you with making the right decisions that you want to make early on when starting out like a reactive app. And it helps you get some standards into your code base early on, helps you with testing, common issues and questions you would have with navigation, and other sort of like popular reaction features you would want to use in a mobile app. So right before we dive into this, we have a raffle open where you get to win a cool shirt, and I'm going to be dropping the link of the raffle in the charts as we go on. And I will do that in a second. Yeah. Hi, Adiola. I could see folks joining us there.
Yeah, mostly Arjunola, if I pronounced your name correctly, is our first guest in the live stream. Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Right. So let us jump right into it. Setting up um, belts. Oh, I'm going to be sharing my screen, and first off, we'll check out belts thoughtbot belts GitHub page. Um, so that is the belt. Yeah, and here is the belts on page. We've been working on it for
Tommy, you may want to, if you want to share the screen, I think you
oh yeah,
should add it to the stage.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. And right what we're seeing on the screen is top belts. Well, we called it top belt once, and then the name evolved into belt. Um, and right here we see is belts on page on GitHub. We've been working on this for quite some time, and so much work has gone into this. It's been evolving for quite a while. We've been getting feedback from in-house in ThoughtBot and from like folks out there, and we want you to also like try out this open source um, CLI tool for starting reactive apps. I'm going to be taking you through starting out with belts, and we will be doing some coding quite soon. What do you think about that, Rakesh?
Love the idea. Let's get started.
All right. The usual thing, you want to clone, um, you want to clone this, and going to be presenting my screen on how we could go about that. Uh,
Do you want me to present?
oh no, I would present.
Okay.
I will pick that up. Um, uh, just throwing up. I'm just throwing up my VS Code. Yeah, VS Code is all set and ready to share. Now I'm going to add the stage. All right.
I can see your VS Code with the belt repo.
Yeah, and here is Belt's repo cloned from GitHub. You could basically get this saved in your personal computer or Mac by running the git command git clone and the URL of Belt. So I already gone through that step, and right now we have Belt. Um,
Tommy, if it's possible, can you increase your font by say one level?
yeah,
That would make it
very visible. Yeah,
readable from those who are viewing it.
yeah,
You can press Command plus plus.
yeah. Command plus.
That
Yep.
should, yeah.
Is this quite?
This is much nicer for me personally. But
Yeah,
if you can work with such a high size, feel free to do it.
yeah. This is also really good. I also do work with the text very much like legible. Yeah, so as I was saying, you would how to start up with using Belt. You would necessarily not need to clone like the code base to use Belt. And you could start this out with npm. So for example, I'm going to be going to project to create an app using Belt. Yep. So here am I on my PC. I'm going to go a step downwards and create an app. What should we call this app, Rakesh?
That's an interesting question. My belt app.
Nice. My build app. And yeah, goes it asks.
So you're using the create belt app command using npx. It means even though you have the repo locally, it's going to use the project from the npm registry while running this command. It's not going to use the local project, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to get this from npm's registry and set you up.
Nice. So
Yeah,
what essentially happens when we run this command is it's going to create a new project or a new expo app called my belt app in the directory from which we are running this. So since you are in this directory called projects, it's going to fetch the latest version of the create belt app from npm and run it on the directory.
yeah, absolutely. And now, if I didn't reiterate this, basically in my opening statement, Belt is an open-ended CLI tool, and uh, we endorse like using certain libraries in your like code base. So with Belt helps you set it up using set up with Expo, using TypeScript, using Prettier and ESLint for like well formatting and linting your code, and just and React Native testing library for having like really perfect tests, and using React Native navigation for the navigation issues that you would have on your app, and also Timestamp Query. Um, that is one of my favorite libraries in the open source space, and we Timestamp Query to use for your server-side state. So I'm ready to proceed with these libraries. I click yes, and Belt gets to do the hard work of setting all these things up with the dependencies. I used to, and also like using Expo is no longer like a is now like endorsed by Rective. Rective endorses that new projects be set up with Expo. So that's something to keep in mind. And voila, we have built my build hub setup. Now let's try to run this somewhere. What we have here, I'm going to go into my build app. Um, yep, this is the directory structure you have for a usual like reactive app. And here we see is the skeletal setup for belts. It's interesting to see how like the evolution of the um, React Native sort of like a basic reactive directory. Um, I don't know if you remember Rakesh. At the initial state for React Native, there were like these many files, and I remember like you had the different index file. You had the index Android.js and the index.ios.js, where
Yes.
which were different entry points for uh, it.
I
So
remember the different entry points for each platform, and at some point in between, they merged both of them to use one single entry point.
yeah,
And with Expo, I think there's some other change. I think Expo has, if I'm not mistaken, Expo has its own way of initializing app, or that's why we don't see any index file here in the root directory at all. It's like it's directly app.tsx is the starting point or the entry point for the app. Expo has some custom code that they used to start the app using app.tsx instead of the standard index.js, or whatever is used in the React Native CLI.
yeah, absolutely. I think Expo has abstractions to make everything sweet and like easy, like to improve the web experience, and you only have to write like the code that you want to concentrate on. I'm going to try to run this on my local device. I have Android emulators and simulators on my local system. Um, this is something perhaps that you would need to have to run this. But I'm going to run it from the command. Yeah,
Tommy,
and
if I can interrupt you, you mentioned that there's like some defaults that are needed, but let's assume somebody who just started using Belt,
mhm.
if they are not aware of how to set this up, like is there like, can we find that documentation and probably post it in the channel,
All right.
like like a basic setup of how to install the simulators and emulators? Even if we are able to point to the React Native docs, that would be great.
All right. Yes, for you to set up your environment. Um, do you have any ideas of perhaps? I would necessarily just endorse like the platform specific ways of setting this up, and that's like maybe like installing the Android SDK and the um, and iOS SDK. I'm familiar with Brew. Brew has setting. Uh, sorry, Homebrew has that there are some packages for setting up React Native. I'm sorry, it feels like my system is quite frozen here.
Oh yeah, I can see your cursor, but it's not
Yeah,
able to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that. Yeah,
Okay,
brew
now it's back.
homebrew. That's it's called Android CLI tool. Yeah, Android command line tools. And this does the job of like installing the Android SDK for you. If you like aren't quite like familiar with Android development, for I think for core Android developers, we like to do that perhaps in a command line script or using Android Studio.
Mhm.
Uh, Android Studios like basically like it makes this easier to do if you don't like the command line experience of doing this. Perhaps I could spend a brief time of showing how this is happens on Android Studio. Um, we'll make it brief tutorial to set up an editor.
I think
So,
some explanation is okay, but yeah, if you can show us how things work on Android Studio, that
yeah,
would be great too.
you launch Android Studio, and there is just a quick like shortcut to do that. Where you click like your virtual device manager, and these are the existing emulators I currently have on Android Studio, and but you could create yours. And if you follow these steps down, you will like get to create your own like emulator on your device. And that's all you need to know about creating an emulator on Android Studio.
Yeah, and Arjunola makes a good comment that Expo Expo comes with app.js at the root and not index.js. Yeah, this is very similar to what I thought. What we discussed at some point. So if it's a TypeScript project, it
Mhm.
probably comes with an app.tsx, and if it's a JavaScript project, it comes with an app.js instead of index, the index file that comes from the React Native CLI.
Yeah. And just as you folks have talked about, here we have the app.csx that Belt sets up for us. Brief, like one of the brief things that I do like about what Belt does is the fact of how it helps us not have um, the provider hell that you would have on React Native applications. Yeah, you have your your Redux provider, your Stack query provider, navigator provider. So like it cleanly abstracts that away for you with this very clean setup. So yep, and this is all generated by belts. Now I'm going to run this on Android. npm run Android.
So you executed the command npm run Android,
Yeah,
which is building the app. Can
yeah,
we find out from where we got that command? Like maybe it's a good idea to go through the package.json to find out all the custom commands that are created by build. I'm assuming you'll show it at some point.
yeah. Yep. So I guess
I'll,
going back.
I'll let you get to it when you get to it.
All right. So going back to basically belts and using belts. Um, thanks for that. There are like there are like the tools for you to like set up your app with basically the command line tools. Like we earlier just used, you use an npx, your create build app, and the name of the app. You could also pass in your preferred package manager that you want to use. For example, if you want to create this with like yarn, if you want to set up with pnpm and Bond, you could pass that as additional argument to the command, and that will set the app up with your preferred package manager.
And Bun is like my personal favorite among all these package managers.
Yeah,
It's kind of the new kid in town, but it's so fast.
exactly.
I'm amazed by how running Bun install is like, it's just like a second or two and it gets done, compared to Yarn or npm, for example.
Yeah, and judging from what you experienced with Bond, that has been the same for me also. Like it's very fast, particularly on like large node modules. I don't have to wait a long time to install node modules. That has been like very, I'd say very, um, uh, uh, a very delicious feature of Bond. I'm talking about food right now. Yeah. So now, how do you get to learn how to set up the app? So I'm looking at, this is the project we set up with belts and on package.json. um, we have the script to run the app on your package.json. Um, I'm going to assume that recruiting devs are familiar with um, the popular commands for running this. So what I did was to basically run, yeah, an npm run Android. In perhaps other packages, this could be an Android and thereabouts. And beneath it runs the expo start command to start stuff on Android. So, and as we know, Expo like greatly improves the development experience for mobile developers. I see mobile developers as somebody who's had like experience with native development, and like it could get very painful. And so here we have our belt app. Voila. Um,
There was a way to put confetti on the entire screen.
yeah, I guess we could do that.
Can we do that?
Yeah, let's. I'm not sure that was this. Does that work?
Oh, it comes on the video. I guess
Oh,
I can do that too. Let's
oh,
see.
nice.
Oh, it's not working for me again.
Oh, I see. Um, yeah, we have some similar. Yeah, and so basically, what happens when you run your npm run Android or iOS is that you get the Expo Go installed in your device, and that basically sets up everything that you want to do. You have your UI elements, your navigation setup, your state management setup, and etc. and all other things like that. But we all know that that's not just like what you would probably like need to do with inside of a React Native app. You probably don't want to use other like features. You want notifications, you want persistent storage, and thereabouts. Belt helps you out with that also. Going on to Belt, we can see Belt as also planned for that. You could add notifications. Yeah, there are some sort of like problems with the README, some typos, but you could add different things to your notifications and other features like to your application. Uh, I also want to share with you that Belt is currently also being sort of like being in iteration, and we're open to contribution from the community. What you think, some custom solutions you'd like to have on Belt. You could always feel free to share that on Belt's GitHub page. You could go ahead to open up an issue, or if you feel very like if you're a quite familiar with the React space, you could come up and contribute to this by giving us a pull request. All right. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure. Did I miss anything out of like setting up with Belt there, Rakesh?
I think the setup was quite fine. Uh, the one difference I found was like the setup you made. You explained how to obtain the belt package from npm and how to run it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are programming or working with belt, we may want to find a way to set it up locally. Uh, I hope we'll get to it at some point later when we are working on an issue.
Yeah. So right now, this is basically how to use Belt, and we're going to dive right into contributing to Belt, and we're going to like step step into like you know resolving or like looking into an issue and how you can contribute to belt. So in that way, we will be able to walk through that. Um, does that? I think
That
that
sounds
yeah,
correct to me.
yeah.
When you ran build, can we do one thing? Like, can we probably delete that project and
Hmm.
recreate one with some custom selection of options available by belt, like choose only certain elements that we want in the app, not all. I
Okay.
believe we have a way to do that.
Yeah, take me through that, Rakesh. I'm going to be enjoying this.
I hope it works when we try now. Let's see.
Yeah, so I'm going to. Yep. So let us set up belts um, again. All right.
Yeah, npx create build app followed by the app name. That's the syntax with which we
Um,
run a build command. I
I
think you can just press enter. Oh
I
yeah,
want.
yeah, let's try help.
Yeah. I
Let's see.
We want to use Bond right now. I want to try this out with Bond. What do you think?
Let's try with bun
Yeah.
and see how it works.
All right. So this is going to be set up with Bond.
Yeah, so it's going to try to set up the app with bun like Tomi explained, and you can see how the options that we get are: we will now create a new app in the directory for you with all of the following goodies: expo, TypeScript, prettier, ESLint, and so on, ready to proceed.
Yeah.
I wonder what happens if we say no.
Yeah.
Will it just quit, or
We could, we could always check that out. So
see what happens?
let's see. No, and
Oh,
it
it just quits. I thought we'll be able to select a subset of these.
well,
Uh,
that's an opportunity to bring that feature into belts. You know,
yeah, that's
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 the
a
word.
good point.
Yeah.
We may want to work on that in the future. Okay, let's now instead try to create the new project using Bun as the package manager.
Yeah. Now we do this again. And now we accept the opinions of belts. We proceed.
Okay, failed. No
Oh
worries except for the command Bun.
yeah, I need to also, since I use a dependency manager for my like environment, I have to like have Born installed. Yeah. So literally I need to have like Born installed. And that's ESDF basically.
Yeah, so there is a dependency manager called ASDF that
Mhm.
we are a big fan of at thoughtbot, and we tend to use that to manage the
Yeah.
different programming languages, different package managers and whatnot. It's very powerful, and we are a big fan of ASDF. I have pasted a link in the chat for
Oh,
ASDF,
thank you.
but you can show it if you want, Tom.
I think I have some problems with my like
Keyboard.
in the keyboard freezes. It's
Oh no.
possibly a Google Chrome, the usual Google Chrome bugs.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep. So now I want to like install um that should be ASDF. I could look at the
it should be ASDF install,
yeah,
or why not? Let's just put ASDF hyphen hyphen help to find out.
yeah, exactly. And ASDF, we want to add this is manage a package manager plugin. Um, yeah, we want to add the the bond plugin. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I would go ASDF plugin. Did I get that right? Um,
yeah, it's plugin install
add,
or
yeah,
plugin add.
add
Sorry.
here and see bond. Uh, yep, already added. Now I'm going
Nice.
to local.
We can do a list all. It will list all the bun versions available. You can type ASDF list space all followed by bun.
Yeah.
I hope this is the right command. Okay. So
Uh,
you can mostly install the most recent version of bun.
yeah, I could. That would be ASDF local.
No,
Um,
I think you need to install first. It should be ASDF install.
oh, I see. I was about to just install. That is.
Just bun.
Oh, yeah, install Bond. Yeah, that would install the latest Bond package. Oh, I see.
Oh, bun followed by the version, I think.
I was. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, sweet.
So fast.
Very fast.
And
And
now you can do the local that you are doing. So
yeah.
essentially what we are doing is we are first downloading bun on our local machine,
Mhm.
downloading a specific version of bun, and we are putting that in the, like, you will notice as soon as Tomi does a ASDF local there, it will put that version of bun in the .tool versions file. And the advantage of doing this is anybody who uses the repo in the future
Mhm.
will ensure that that specific version of bun and that specific version of node is installed on their machine. So it ensures that all developers using the repo are able to kind of be on the same versions of whatever is needed for the repository.
I'm actually going to do it a global Bond.
Global is even better. It'll install it for all repos that you use.
Yeah. So back to creating this now. Yeah. Oh yeah, it is directory exists. So I'm going to remove the directory. Uh,
Nice.
my build up. And again, yeah. Yep. And there we have when you install it, CLI gives you information on how to run this on iOS or on Android. Um, I think we did run on Android previously. Let us see how this looks on iOS. And then from this, we could move on to looking at how to contribute to builds.
I think it's bun run.
Yeah, run iOS. Yep.
That is so cool.
That was faster than Jack Robinson.
Ha ha ha. Definitely. That was so fast. I'm kind of amazed how
That-
fast it built the app and deployed to the simulator.
yep. So I hope this was really I think this was really a great startup to build even for me. I did enjoy this. Um, now what we want to do is we want now to go into the internals of Belt and look into what Belt is all about and how we can contribute to Belt. Um, uh, First off, I think um, Rakesh, you were one of like the early contributors of Belt to Belt. Um, what would you say were like the inspiration like behind creating Belt?
Yeah, I Belt was originally created by or started by a former thoughtbotter, and now the rest of us are maintaining it. And the vision when we first created Belt was to our original goal was not to make this open source and make it available for everyone to use. The goal was more of any client project. Thoughtbot mostly works with clients.
Mhm.
Any mobile project that we start for a client, we wanted a tool that sets up or boots a React Native app using acceptable defaults that we all love at Thoughtbot. Like this means like we like React navigation, we like TypeScript, anything that we like and we use in our client projects. We wanted an easy way to kind of start a new mobile project, and the main inspiration was just that, to be able to quickly start a new mobile project. And I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Um, I that really is that really explains it. Because from my first like experience with React Native, I can understand that like setting up was sort of like a chore. You would scramble up around. For example, like I don't think I still know like all of the libraries needed to set up React application, because there are a couple of libraries you need to put together to set up React application.
Yeah, there's the drawer, there's the
So,
stack.
yeah, and
Yeah, I don't get it either. There's so many of them.
yeah, and I would run into problems then, when I would think I had set up the navigation, and I'll be running this during the runtime, it would crash because like there were some other like dependencies that were missing. Um, and I'm glad that like now we have tools about better tools about dependency management in the React space. Tools like Expo and even Belts that helps you um, you know not be burdened by the load of dependency management. You could just go write a command, you set up all the tools you need, and you're up developing your UI. So, um,
And if I can add a bit more to that, Tommy, typically what happens when we start a new mobile project for a client is like, the first week is mostly spent on the setup. uh, I mean, a week is mostly 4 days of work at Thoughtbot for a client. So the first 4 days is typically reserved for set up a new GitHub repo, set up a new project, configure all the tools, configure the CI, configure the linters, configure TypeScript. All these things were taking up like quite a sizable time. I mean, 4 days is still pretty good in my opinion, but we wanted to, if there was a way to accelerate that and reduce the time that it takes to set up a new project, we wanted to do that. And Belt precisely helps with that. So now instead of 4 days, you might still take like 2 days, because there's still a lot more that happens. Like if you want to set up automated tests for every pull request on the CI, automated type checks, automated linter checks, there's still some amount of work, but at least with Belt, everything runs fine locally as soon as you start a new mobile project. So it's much easier to set up things on the CI.
absolutely, yeah. Um, so now I would like us to do something like like stuff hand in hand right now. We're going to go through contributing to Belt, and as with like literally looking at how to contribute to Belt, we would review sort of like the decisions that why did we choose, for example, React Navigation Library, for example. Why did we consider that opinion as important for developing a mobile app? Um, so first off, what would it take to contribute to Belt? I'm going to be sharing my screen again, and
Tommy, can I interrupt you? It's very, very similar to the point that you mentioned. We have a comment from Arjunola which says, we should be able to select some alternative For example, what's a good way to integrate Expo router instead of React navigation, for example? So ideally we want belt. Yes, that's
Mhm.
great that you were able to amplify that comment. How do we do that?
So in the comments, you
Oh,
hover.
there's a show height. Yeah,
Yes.
nice. So I think at some point we want to be able to provide choices for the user.
Mhm.
Do you want to use React navigation for the project, or do you want to use Expo router? And the user should be able to select one or the other, and the project should be we should be able to set up the project using any of the navigation solutions, not necessarily navigations, but anywhere where we have this choice. I think we were going to discuss state management as well, so
Yeah.
we will be addressing that comment in detail in, uh, like very soon.
Absolutely. Um, I, I think that is a future of the tool that we want to like get to, where you could compose an app with sort of like all the options that you have, and by running a command, that would be a great place to be. So let us dive in into um let's dive into belts. Let's see what's behind like belts. Why did we choose something? For example, we have a comment here talking about um, Expo router or React navigation. Why we chose what we chose. Right now, I'm going to be sharing my screen and would be looking at it from the GitHub page right here. So yeah, yeah. So there's the lovely GitHub page of belts, and belts gets belts gets you configured.
Tommy,
Helps.
you need to add your screen to the stage.
Oh, I always do forget to do that. I guess I'm going to get familiar with this quite soon. Yep. So belts helps you configure certain tools to like your reactive application. Like we said, the opinions we our opinions about using Expo, about using ES linked, prettier, TypeScript, just reactive testing library, and that's MSW, React navigation, tank stack query, and Redux. Well, Redux toolkit is generally coming out, but um, I guess well, not I guess, but I know that these are sort of like the tools that we use internally at thoughtbot. Um, why do you think, Rakesh? I want you to share your insight on this. Um, why are these the libraries that we endorse? For example, why do we think Expo is the right way to go to build React Native applications?
That's a very good question. Until a few, until like say an year or two, for yeah back, we were always using the React Native CLI. Uh, I have not seen any client project that used Expo until say last year, 2023 or so. It was primarily we always felt that Expo was a bit slower in terms of performance of the mobile apps compared to React Native CLI, and that is a belief we had, and that was also true to an extent. Expo was not like so fully optimized, and it was not as good as how it is currently, and a lot of credits to the Expo team. They have tremendously improved over the last few years, and the performance is like almost like on par with CLI. Uh, I also wrote a blog post about this at some point on why we love Expo. A few points from that post are how it makes it so much easier to deploy the apps, build and deploy the apps compared to the CLI. With CLI, you have to spend a good amount of effort to set up automation tools like Fastlane, and it's almost easy to set that up locally, but if you want to somehow automate it on the CI, it's a big problem, or it's not that easy to set that up on the cloud, and you end up spending a lot more time and effort to do that. But with Expo, this is almost not a problem at all. It's like the apps by default build on the cloud, and it's so much easier to just deploy to the stores. The process is so streamlined. You can the web dashboard that you see on expo.dev, it provides so much information on what apps are being built for what environments and so on. And yeah, this is one deployment is one reason, and the
Mhm.
performance, which became on par with CLI, is another reason. We There was no real reason to use the CLI anymore, because the Expo app works very well, uh, or performs very well. And another reason was, up until a few years back, 1 or 2 years back, I think there was no way to integrate native modules. That the native module support was lacking on Expo, but like, yeah, during the last good release, like 1 or 2 years back, they even brought the native modules into Expo, and this was one big factor that we were using CLI, because sometimes for clients, like large clients, there's always a good chance you may want to integrate that a particular third party native SDK onto the mobile app code base, and Expo did not provide a way for that. So all these reasons together, but very recently, since all those problems have been solved, we kind of feel like Expo is probably the right way for most projects. There can still be some corner cases where the CLI is a better choice, but I would say for 95% of the projects that we are building, Expo is like a fair choice.
And it it, it looks like, like thoughtbot endorses like using like Expo with belts. And what do you know? Recently, React Native also endorses that new projects also be built with Expo. So we say that we unified on that sort of like on that thought. And that's really like an important statement on the amount of wins you get by using Expo. It cuts down so much time you spend battling with sort of like configuring the platforms. And Expo gets you started up fast and quick. And that's sort of the philosophy that we want to accomplish with Belt. Yep. Thanks for that, Rakesh. And talking about the other sort of like parts, we talked about Expo, and one of the core discussion parts building with React is the state management, and we endorse using sort of like Timestack query for um, like managing your server side state, and we currently um, use Redux for state management in thoughtbot. Uh, but yeah, this is a question I want to throw out because of some of the comments that we've had on belts, some of the feedback that we've had on belts in supporting sort of like other libraries. But what do you have to say about that, Rakesh? Like, okay, I guess that there are new libraries up now in Zustand, Jotai, Mobux. Why does Belt still like use um, why does Belt endorse using sort of like Redux in starting our projects?
That's a very interesting question. I know you mentioned a few state management solutions there. I have used Mobex in the past. Uh, I've used Redux extensively in a lot of client projects. I guess the choice is more to do with what what kind of skills the developers at Thoughtbot have. Since we have used Redux in a lot of client projects, and we have had fair bit of success using them for our clients, the apps have all been really good, and We have got some good feedback on the work we have done on the mobile front, and it's I think a big reason comes down to what the developers are most comfortable with more than anything else. And I'm completely open to using new modern state management solutions like Zustand, probably Zustand, but not the others. And I know that Mobex promises a lot of performance gains and everything, but I'm very worried that if we enter complicated state management uh, needs that are needs for a project, and it might prove to be tricky if we use a different state management solution. So
Mhm.
yeah, I hope that answers your question. I'm very open to using Zustand as an alternative to Redux, but probably not the other state management solutions at this point. I think the wins are very marginal. Um, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what do you think of the different state management solutions?
I agree. I agree with the fact like about the, how we know about so Redux has been used extensively so much now that we know about the strengths and weaknesses of Redux. And time has passed. I think like that library has matured so very much. Um and we have taken that like we're taking so much learnings that we have learned with Redux. And I don't think there'll be new problems that would shock or surprise us with using Redux. Um, Although like my opinions about like that like state management has been shifting for a while, for a long time. And that's because of in the concept of like what mobile apps use recently. So like a lot of mobile apps depend on server-side states. And I also even have a spicy take that perhaps you might not even need Redux in your application when starting out, because of mobile apps depend so much on server-side states. But that being said, I've tried out. I tried out Redux Toolkit. It was a huge improvement to our apps were built, and Redux also came in with more additional improvements in terms of the RTK query that also like helped manage server-side state. Um, I also did try. I've worked also with Zustand, and in fact, in the recent survey of state of React Native, Zustand came up really high up there as one like library that people like to use. I also fell in love with the library right from the get go because of how simple it was to use. Less really like really less boilerplate, and I love the tone that the docs introduced like such with. So I I'm a fan of that, but there is the thing about maturing of tools, because people use tools for like a very number of needs, and then you find out like edge problems that were not designed for. So I guess it is like Redux is satisfactory to a point for like basic use cases, and you might not even need to use Redux in the first place. So my opinions around state management are quite a whole lot of like mix of um, being cautious with it, because state management seems to be like a long-term decision for your code base, and you want to go with something that where there's a huge knowledge base of, and Redux seems to fit that scenario. There's so much like resources on Redux out there, so I think it's a good place to start. And coming in here, we also have had like the input from the community around feedback on state management, and in the future we also want to make um, um, belts be able to set up other corresponding like state management solutions also.
That was very nicely put. I especially like your take about why we might not need a state management solutions. I mostly agree with that, especially if the majority of your functionality resides in the server and the client is like a
Mhm.
Like the front end is just a reflection of what's going on in the server. I fully agree that we may not even need a state management solution. Everything can be done using Tanstack query, where
Yeah.
everything is neatly managed. The entire server data is neatly managed for us by the library. I'm a big fan of Tanstack query as well. And I also like how you had a very good experience using Zustand. I also forgot to mention how Redux Toolkit removed a lot of one of the big complaints developers had with Redux was like there was a huge amount of boilerplate. I know how we have certain legacy projects that were uh, like 5-year old project when Redux Toolkit was not available that still use the old form of Redux that involves creating so many files everywhere, actions, reducers, and so on. So much of boilerplate where you have to name each action separately and so on. I like how Redux Toolkit worked on that problem and modernized that a bit so that the boilerplate is almost eliminated. It's like now on par with any other state management library in terms of boilerplate. Uh,
I,
great points.
I think if you liked Redux Toolkit, you would like Zustand because they are very, very similar. We've been at this for quite a while. I think we could take a 5 minutes break here, get a cup of water in, and come back and begin to review Belt's issues. What do you think, Rakesh?
Sounds great. 5 minute
All,
break sounds really good.
all right, folks. We'll be back in five. Stay there. Don't leave. All right.